So what's the inspiration behind the nonprofit? Man, I've told this story several times, just like, growing up without your mom, and just trying to navigate through life without her being there is like a huge, I think issue. And I think the biggest piece about it is like, how do you help boys navigate this loss, And I think if we think hard about anybody who've experienced loss, man, it's a long process that I don't feel like I've ever gotten over, but I know over time I've just learned how to, maneuver through life. And I think that's really the foundation. Like, we created this to really help young boys, to help moms even understand this, how they can support us with it, and helping, single fathers, just really helping the world realize, like, number one, it's a challenge, but then number two, like, there's actually a way that we can support and help boys like myself, like you, kind of navigate through this loss. So that, I would say, that's the reasoning behind, why we created it.
The foundation of the project is really life. God, right? Love, right? When you think about your mother, mothers give life, mothers give love. They're the nurturers. They're the ones who instill God in us, right? So to lose that, and to realize the impact of that loss, it's really about the foundation is young boys and being able to help, not necessarily recreate, but reinforce that love.
Yep.
That grief comes with a void that we want to try to help step in,
right,
and reinforce for these young boys, so that as they become men, they can reach back and help someone else as well.
Yeah. So what's the impact that I want to make on young boys through the program? And I tell this story, I've told it a few times, but, and you remember, a few years ago, COVID hit, and being in education, you get an opportunity to meet, lots of kids, and went out to a school to help, and end up meeting this young boy. His name was Michael Jackson. I ain't never told you that.
Wow, no.
Michael Jackson. I was already kind of intrigued.
Right, so,
like, what you got? You gotta have a dance move or something.
Right.
But no, he was in his principal's office on the floor, right? He's typing on his computer, and I was like, it's something special about this kid. And the principal told me, he had experienced like major loss in his life. He had lost his mom. I think his father had ended up being incarcerated. He was living with his grandmother, who was struggling, and he was selling water bottles, bro. Water bottles to help fund his internet, right? So like, he needed Wi-Fi. He didn't have the money, so he went out selling water bottles on the street. And his story just really resonated with me, so much so that I reached out to some people on social media, you as well, and others that just kind of helped us. We ended up raising, an astronomical amount of money within 24 hours. And our idea was, man, let's take this money and really, support this child, and really show him like that he can do this. And so I would say that's the impact. I know I couldn't help, 1,000 boys at once with the, with the money and the resources that I had, but I knew that if I could really focus on one and helping that one child, I think, hopefully that would permeate and actually, inspire people to also help. So I think the basis and like what I want to do, what I believe should do through this program is have children understand, like, we got you, like, we understand, number one, but also we got you. And hopefully if we can do that for a small amount of children, eventually, with more resources, with more people buying in, helping out, we can, intentionally or hopefully help out a bigger amount.
To your point, just having them know that they are not alone.
Yeah.
I think that grief has a tendency to make you feel like you're in it all by yourself, right? And so many people that experience the same thing, but when you're in it and in that moment, you feel so isolated.
Yeah.
If we could impact one young boy to help him understand that you are not alone in this, and that while we cannot replace that loss,
right,
what we hope to be able to do is just reinforce that love.
Absolutely.
And help him be able to help somebody else. And to your point, I would love for it to be this grand scale thing where we can help as many young boys as possible. But if we can just start with one or a few, right, I think that impact could be major in helping somebody understand that you can live through this by giving and by experiencing the love of your mother through other people. We go about identifying and reaching out to young boys who've experienced this loss. I mean, it's about community, right? It's about connecting to people,
right.
Building relationships with the local communities, with churches, connecting with people via social media. That's a huge thing these days,
Absolutely.
right? I think that's the way that we go about reaching out to and identifying these young boys, hearing the stories of people who are experiencing this loss with these young boys every day.
Sure.
Is I think going to be a great way to start as the network grows.
Right.
I think we'll be able to develop a funnel of like formal introduction by way of connecting to other organizations, but just to start connecting with the local community and connecting with people who we already know are experiencing this loss. I think I know kids already. Who
You didn't tell me
who I know we can connect with and who are new on this journey of life without their mothers, and so I think that's a good way to start.
And I remember when we first playing around with the idea, we were like, all right, should we do men? Should we do men who lost their mothers? Should we do anybody who's experienced the loss? Should it be fathers? Like we were kind of tugging with that, like wrestling around with that idea. And so like we landed on like, let's just focus on boys, which I think it's a very small amount of people, but then it was like, well, really, is it? Like, it's probably a lot of us in this fraternity. And you remember when we saw one of our boys sent us Kyrie Irving's story. And I didn't realize Kyrie had lost his mom. When I figured out like, oh, wow, not only did he lose his mom, like he's experiencing this same issue. I think that helped us kind of focus in on that, that one child. And then, like I was saying, in education, there's so many children that you see, misbehaving, doing things, out of character, not being, successful at manhood.
Right.
And then you find out like, oh, wow, didn't know that.
And that's a great point. And I wanted to make sure that we mentioned why we chose boys.
Yes.
Right. I think that's paramount to this whole concept. Boys grow up to be men who grow up to lead their family.
Big fact.
So saving these young boys is bigger than just about their individual lives.
Absolutely.
It's about the legacy that they leave with the families that they create. And this is about the entire community that gets saved by way of helping these boys who could, to your point,
that's huge.
Bad behavior, they get off on the wrong track.
Right.
And then there's this grief loss turns into loss of purpose, loss of life opportunity that we can really help them save. That's just not saving them, it's saving so many others in the process.
So what are some of the common challenges that these boys face, and how will our organization help them overcome those challenges? That's a loaded question, honestly.
Yes.
The only thing I can think about, from the years that I was kind of helping in ministry is, when you have a real big like God dream, you really don't like fully have it all mapped out, but I definitely think, we have a foundation, right? But I will speak to like the common challenges I think these boys face is being a boy without a mother, and we talked about it earlier, there's a resource challenge, right? Like, so like you really actually could use some resources, right? But I also think there's this element of therapy. And I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago, I don't think I shared it with you. There was this really old white lady, right? This white lady helped me, I'm serious, bro, it's funny now, but I keep getting like glimpses of her. She helped me with how do you take like something that's like that hurtful and turn it around and make it something positive, right? But also be able to deal with the pressures of, that loss. And I say all that to say, like, these boys are experiencing like some really traumatic issues in life. Like some of these kids could take the wrong route. Some of them will just be like, I don't care. because you're missing a real strong element of your life when you lose your mom. And so I think what we could do, and I know what we need to do, is help them, seek therapy, man. Help them with community, help them to understand they're not alone. But also like really help them to see like during those times where you're feeling this, you're not feeling this because you're crazy.
Right.
Right? Like you're feeling this because you're missing a big void in your life.
Right.
And nobody can ever replace that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think to sort of like sum all of that up, it's you said pain. This intense pain.
Right.
And I think it's taking that pain and turning it into purpose.
Right.
Like everything that we go through, and this is biblical, right? I mean, everything that we go through is for a reason.
Yeah.
Even the painful stuff.
Yeah.
So if we can help them understand by way of resources and then just connection that you didn't experience this loss for no reason.
Right. You're not alone.
And that loss is the beginning of a new purpose that we're ultimately trying to help these young boys discover in their lives. We'll measure success at achieving our goals. I think it's two ways. I think it's twofold. It's quantifiable and then it's qualifiable. Quantifiable, obviously, we have organizational goals, certain funds that we want to reach to be able to help a certain number of kids, right? I think that's the quantifiable approach, which makes sense from an org perspective, right? But then there's the quality aspect of it,
right?
And I don't know that that's measurable more so than it is really about seeing the change, taking this young man who, when you meet him, he may be in one place and he may be, lost to a certain degree, behavior issues or, not really engaging or not really understanding how he's going to move forward. I mean, we could be dealing with kids who are having suicidal thoughts. We don't know what we're getting into, right? But I think starting in that place and then seeing the transition and how those resources help them start living again is really the quality aspect of measuring success within the organization. So
yeah, and I to piggyback off your quantitative, we really need to empower these young boys to be able to realize like you have a long life to live, right? But you're gonna need help, and I think you said it best. But I think to do that we need money, bro.
Yeah, resources.
So
resources.
I think we can measure the impact also of the organization by like how much we can raise for these kids. The money part is really for them. This is something that is also because this whole mom angel idea. Like I'm still processing this loss. You would think 20 years later I would be over this, but I'm not. And because of that, like I know we need to be able to help them financially as well, like so that they could get out. And I think that's how I'm gonna measure whether or not we accomplished what we thought we were gonna accomplish. So how does the organization plan to partner with other nonprofits in the community? So I think one of them is, churches. You mentioned earlier about it being a spiritual thing, and I think it's a biblical thing. You said it is definitely a biblical thing. And being a biblical guy, I fully understand, even Jesus' life, and where and the role his mother played in his life and how she was very disappointed, behind his loss. I think churches are going to be, very instrumental in the work that we do. Like first, they can help us identify. I know churches already have, things in place to help with grief counseling. I think they have mothers who can support students because your mom. And I think that we didn't even talk about this, but one of the reasons why, we even connected even that along that path is the role that she played in my life.
Yeah.
And so moms have always been able to help me when that got, that needed to be fulfilled, and so churches can also help us with, maybe you couldn't, bear a child and you want to quote unquote adopt, one of the boys who've lost. So I think, man, churches, schools, other organizations can help us by way of, contributing financially. Right. So I think overall, like we have quite a few people, I think, in the community that can help us accomplish.
Yep. And I think those relationships are going to be important,
Right.
because it's about connection,
True.
and it's about people. And so, in addition to the financial resources, that we need the resources of people's time as well.
Yeah.
So that partnership and that community in order to meet the people that we need to be successful is tremendous.
Yeah.
I'm Mario.
And I'm Claude, and we are the co-founders of Mom Angel Organization.
Mom Angel. The mission for our organization is to help young boys who've experienced the loss of their mother. Mothers are the most important figures in most of our lives. And so what we want to do with this organization is be present for these young boys in those big moments where their mom's absence is going to be felt the most: Christmas, back to school, and really pour into them with our resources, our time, our money, and help remind them that in spite of the absence of their mothers, there's life and there's purpose in that. And so we just want to reinforce that for these young men.
Yeah, and how you can do that is you can join us, www.momangel.org, or any one of our social media platforms. You can click donate if you want to donate your financial contribution. If you want to support us with therapy, if you want to support us with any other organization that you believe, boys like us will benefit from, that's how you do that. And man, we look forward to working along with y'all and really making this thing come to life for us, and more importantly, for those young boys who need you the most.